Hi, in this video we will talk about distributed recovery using cloning. In the last video we have seen the distributed recovery using binary logs. That is, if any of the member goes down and if it tries to rejoin group, the missing transactions can be extracted from the existing members' bin log files and applied. The missing transactions can be extracted from any of the existing members' bin logs and applied. But imagine a situation that this member is down for quite some time and the bin logs which are having the missing transactions are purged on all the group members. Then when this member tries to rejoin the group, it won't be in a position to get the missing transactions. Then in that situation we can make use of this cloning feature. Cloning basically deletes all the data on the joining member and copies the data from the existing members. It copies all the data from the existing member to the joining member. For that to happen, we need to have an additional plugin. That is, on top of the existing group replication, mandatory group replication plugin on all the members, we even need to have the cloning plugin installed. So if we have the cloning plugin installed, then we can make use of the cloning feature to clone all the data. That is, it basically deletes the existing data on the joining member. It basically deletes and then copies the data from one of the member into the joining member. So cloning operation can happen under two scenarios. That is, we do not have the binary logs or the binary logs that have the missing transactions for this member are purged. The binary logs are purged on all the existing members. And the second thing is, the difference between the GTID of the joining member and the existing members is greater than a threshold. The difference between the GTID is greater than a threshold. So this threshold is specified using the variable group replication clone threshold. This is expressed in number of transactions. That is, imagine these members are at GTID 1000 and this member, while it tries to rejoin the group, is at 800 GTID. The difference between these two is 200 GTIDs. 200 transactions are missing. And if we specify this variable group replication clone threshold, and if we specify this variable as 100 transactions, then when this member is trying to join back the group, it checks the difference between the current GTID and this member is 800, whereas the existing member's GTID is 1000. So it is greater than the threshold of 100. So in that situation also it goes for cloning. It deletes the existing data on the joining member and then it copies the data. Also, there are other prerequisites for the cloning operation. That is, one thing is we need to specify this MySQL clone plugin in this variable plugin load add. So this is mandatory, or we can install the clone plugin. We can follow either of these things. And for us to verify the active plugins, we can verify either through show plugins or information schema dot plugin. I will show that in the demo. Also, the other prerequisites are we need to have the same active plugins on the joining member and the donor. So the failed member which is trying to rejoin the group, that is called the joining member, in our case this one, and one of these two would become the donor. So we need to have the same plugins on the donor and also on the joining member. And we need to have the same MySQL character set, collation, same InnoDB page size, same InnoDB data file path. Also, if we make use of the encryption, then we need to have a secure connection. A secure connection is required to clone the encrypted data. For the cloning to happen, on the source or on the donor side, the user responsible should be granted the backup admin privilege, and on the joining member, the user responsible should be granted the clone admin privilege. And if you want to choose a specific member as a donor, then we can make use of the clone valid donor list. We can set this thing so that only that member will be used for the cloning operation as the donor. Also, we can monitor the clone operation. So, going to the demo, we have 3 members in our group: MySQL 1, MySQL 2 and MySQL 3. So MySQL 1, MySQL 2 and MySQL 3, these are our 3 members of the group. We will try to bring down the MySQL 3 and then try to make use of the cloning to perform the distributed recovery on it. Okay, under etc my.cnf, this is the variable that loads both the group replication and also clone plugin. That MySQL clone makes use of the library available in so this is where the library for the clone will be available, or the other plugins will be available. So it makes use of this library to perform the cloning, and we need to have this on any one of the existing members at least, and on the joining member. So it is preferred that we have this on all the members. And the user responsible for cloning should have the additional privileges. Let's see the privileges. Show grants for the user is REPL in our case. So he is having the backup admin. This is from MySQL 1 and the previous window was from MySQL 2. The user is having the backup admin, and on the joining member he needs to be given additional privileges, clone admin. We can grant it while we do that. And the other criteria, the voice versions are the same for my group members, and also the MySQL server release versions are the same for my group members. And let's check the active plugins. Okay, group replication is active and clone is also active. This is from another member, MySQL 1, and from MySQL 3. So the plugins are the same on all the members. This is just another way to see the active plugins. The plugins are the same on all the members, so that criteria is also matched. Okay, let's also see the threshold variable that we discussed about, that is group replication clone threshold. Okay, group replication clone threshold, this is expressed in the number of transactions. Let's see that. So this is expressed in the number of transactions. So the difference between the joining member and the existing members, if it is greater than this threshold, only then the cloning would be invoked. I have tried this scenario also. I have intentionally kept this value to 200 and then ensured that the difference between the joining member and the existing members is greater than 200. And then when we try to perform the recovery, the cloning automatically happens. So I even tried that scenario also. But in this video we are actually covering a scenario where we will see that the existing members binary logs will not have the required transactions. Okay, we are not making use of SSL for the recovery, but in case if our data is encrypted at rest, then we are forced to make use of the SSL for recovery. And then we also need to set the other SSL related variables. And we can even think of having the data compressed, but we are not making use of that option. Okay, let's just see the current status of our group members. GTID executed, we all know that it will show the details of the transactions that this member has got. So this member has got all the transactions from one of the member till this level, and from the other member, and from the third member of the group. So let's compare these values. Let me copy that into Notepad. Okay, I realized the group replication was not started on one of the members, so I started it. And once I started it, let me get the GTID. So this is from MySQL 3 member, and this is from MySQL 1 member, and the top one is from MySQL 2. It is 234225, 234225, it is matching, and 2651, it is the same on all the members, and also 556. So our GTIDs are matching as of now. Let me intentionally bring this member down. We are actually imitating a scenario where one of our member is down for certain time, and during this time we will try to perform some transactions on this other group members and see that the group progresses, but this member is left behind. And when this member tries to rejoin the group, we make use of the cloning feature. So in this multi-primary group, at the start all of our members were at the same GTID. So the GTID of our members were like this, and all of them are at the same GTID, meaning all the transactions are available on all of the members, or the data is consistent on all of the members. Now we intentionally brought down this member, and we will make some transactions on the existing members. We'll make some DML on the existing members. and when this member tries to join back into the group, it needs to get those missing transactions. And to have the cloning invoked, we don't want to have those changes available in the existing members bin log files. And for that, I want to ensure that the bin log files having those changes while this member was down are also purged. So we need to ensure that these binary log files which are having the changes are also purged. So for that, I make use of one more variable, bin log expire log seconds. This specifies the time after which your bin logs will be purged, and the bin logs are purged either at startup or when we flush the logs using the flush log statement. So this is only to imitate a scenario where we want to ensure that the changes are not available in the binary logs. Otherwise, the distributed recovery happens making use of the changes available on the bin logs. The changes will be applied on the joining member. We don't want that to happen. We want to have the cloning invoked, and for that we need to see that these logs are also purged. Okay, by default the bin logs are maintained for 30 days. After that they are purged. So let's check this variable value on the existing members, bin log expire logs seconds. So this is 30 days, the value is expressed in seconds. This is from member MySQL 1, and okay, I have already set this to 60 on one of the member MySQL 2. So let me also set the same thing on the MySQL 1, because at this moment only MySQL 1 and MySQL 2 are the active members of the group, and member 3 is down. We can check that MySQL 1 and MySQL 2 are active. Also, if we are making any change, we need to ensure that it does not generate a GTID. If the maintenance operation that we do generates a GTID, then the member could be out of sync. So to avoid that problem, we need to ensure SQL bin log is equal to 0 and then run the command. That way this won't generate a transaction, and the group replication is not impacted. Because if this operation generates a GTID, then the member could go out of sync, which we do not want to happen for our maintenance operations. But this command, I know this is not going to impact the group replication, so I will set it directly. So we are saying my bin log should be expired after 60 seconds, and expired bin logs will be purged under certain scenarios. We will see that. So from MySQL 2 also it is the same. We have a test database here. And we have some tables here, users and users 1. I have a procedure here, so that once I call that procedure, it adds some data into our users table. So as of now 5996 records are there. This procedure inserts some data into that table, users table. But before I invoke that, I want to see the binary logs also. Okay. This is the status of my binary logs on MySQL 1 and the status of binary logs on MySQL 2. So let me do that DML now. Okay, from 5900 odd we went to 6900 odd. This is on MySQL 2. Let me check the count on MySQL 1. It is the same thing. Now let's also check the bin logs. On the MySQL 1, this bin log is having the modifications, and on the MySQL 2 member, bin log 20 is having the modifications related to this change. So to have that purged, we need to wait for 60 seconds. Once we wait for 60 seconds and when we give flush logs, it will be purged. So previously 19 and 20 logs were available. Now it created a new log 21 and the existing log 20 is also there. After we wait for 60 seconds and then once we give the flush logs, this will also be purged. Then that is an ideal scenario where we don't have the changes available in the binary logs, and this joining member should make use of the cloning. So let's wait for a minute. Okay, it is more than 60 seconds now. When we give flush logs, it should flush the bin log file which was having all the changes. So bin log 20 is flushed now, or it is purged. So let's do the same thing on the other available member. Sorry, command is flush logs. We still have the 24 bin log available. I flushed the logs. Okay, now the binary logs which hold the transactions that were done while the member 3 was down got purged from both the existing members. That is, from MySQL 1 it is purged, as well as from MySQL 2 also it is purged. So if MySQL 3 tries to joins back, it does not have the binary logs available. Now the other option is if at all the cloning plugin is available, it tries to make use of the cloning. So we have already enabled the cloning plugin and we have granted the required privileges on the existing members, and for the joining member it even needs to have the additional privilege of a clone_admin. So on the recipient, a clone user needs to have the clone_admin privilege. So we will grant that while we bring up the member 3. So as of now only MySQL 1 and MySQL 2 are only active. So let me try to get this member 3 up. In our setup, MySQL Group Replication does not start up as and when the member's MySQL starts. So we need to start it up explicitly using start_group replication. But before that, we need to grant the clone_admin privilege to the user. So to safely grant that, we need to set the SQL log bin is equal to 0, so that this grant clone admin privilege does not generate additional GTID. If it generates an additional GTID, then this member could be out of sync and it can't join the group again. So for that, we need to set this SQL log bin is equal to 0. So this particular maintenance that we do does not attract a GTID. So SQL log bin is equal to 0. If you have followed my previous videos, you would understand this super read only, but if not, the super read only does not allow you to perform any modification. So you need to set this variable to off so you can perform any modification. So we are granting the clone admin privilege to the user. Now we again need to set the super read only to on and the SQL log bin to on, and let's check the grants for that user and the joining member. Okay, now he is even having the privilege of clone admin, which is required to perform the cloning. As of now, this member group replication is not yet started, but you can read the stale data. The data is not on par with the other members, so it is stale, but you can still read the data. So the 1000 transactions are still missing. So let me start the group replication here. I also want to show under the data directory what happens during the recovery period using cloning. So let me start group replication on the MySQL 3. So I have started. It has deleted some of the files. Okay, let me also check the progress. Looks like it is already done. Also, the other fact is once it completes the cloning, it restarts the MySQL instance. Okay, that is the reason why we see this thing connection lost and then it reconnected. Now we see the data. I want to show the log file for this. Okay, this message is of importance. This will help us to understand. Group replication reported. This member will start a distributed recovery using a clone. It is due to no online members has the missing data for recovery in its binary logs. So no online member was having the bin logs since we purged them, and it has no options to perform the recovery, but it has the clone plugin installed, so it made use of the clone plugin and got the data using the cloning. You can see that more details here. And it performs the restart of the instance of the joining member. So this is one more way we can perform the distributed recovery. Let's also check the status of the group members now. Okay, we have the member restarted. After the cloning, this member gets restarted. So I need to start the group replication again. Now the handshake happened between all the members. MySQL 1, 2 and 3. This is from MySQL 3. From MySQL 1 and MySQL 2. We can try to perform more changes. Okay, let me insert 100 more records from MySQL 3 and check. This is from MySQL 3. 1000 odd from MySQL 1, 7000 odd from MySQL 2. So that way we performed the distributed recovery using cloning in the MySQL Group Replication. So we basically need to set up the cloning plugin and other required conditions, and when the conditions are met, the cloning happens automatically when we trigger the start group replication. I recommend to consider the database size, network bandwidth, and the time it takes to perform the cloning. Also test this feature in the non-production environment so we can understand the time it takes to perform the cloning. Once this is tested, then it can be considered for the production use. And that completes this video. Thank you for watching.